Hello there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Talk Music Talk with Boice. I am Boice, and this is my podcast. You are listening to Talk Music Talk is a weekly music interview podcast where I have long-form conversations with people connected to music from different genres and different backgrounds, both established and emerging singers, songwriters, music therapists, music journalists. And on this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking to Mike Ladd, hip-hop artist, producer. We first talked when I interviewed him for Brooklyn Rail newspaper, and he was working with Vijay Iyer, the jazz pianist, and we were talking about his collaborations with him. That was back in 2015, 2016, in addition to working with someone like Vijay. He has also collaborated with many people, but he has also released several solo albums, including 2005's Negrophilia and Father Divine. He loves collaborations, one of the things he talks about in the interview, and his latest project is a collaboration. It is called TheDeadCanRap with street artist and producer Remi Rough. Came out in December. Great conversation with Mike as usual. What did we talk about? He's been living in Paris for 17 years, moving from New York, and he talks about life as an artist in Paris, the Paris hip hop scene. He talks about balancing a music career and raising a family. Also, why he loves collaborations, as I mentioned, variety in his music. Plus, we talked about growing up in the shadow of his mother and her world of academia. He talks about overcoming addiction. Plus, of course, he talks about the TheDeadCanRap project and working with Remi Rough. After the conversation, you will hear one of the songs from the self-titled album. It is called 21st Century. Two things before we get to the conversation. This was recorded in his mother's home, and he visually references shelves and shelves of books behind him. He points, so that will explain the reference, what I'm referencing in the interview. And also, you can now listen to the podcast in a very new place. If you are a Samsung user, it is now available in the Samsung free app under the Listen tab. So check out the podcast there for Samsung Galaxy users. And here it is, without further ado, my conversation with Mike Ladd. Enjoy. So you're still in Paris. How long has it been now?
17 years.
Okay, cool. And how has life been for you since we last talked?
It's been good. I mean, how's life been? Personally, it's been magnificent. In terms of, I got a great wife. I got two kids that I'd never tell them this, so it's off the record. But, my family is my platinum record,
Okay, that's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, in terms of that, I'm blessed, really. And then, in terms of artistic stuff, it's almost been a means to an end. I've been doing it. I always do interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I make sure I do things that I'm proud of or at least enjoy. And I always make sure it's, that it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I take that over the money.
Uh-huh.
But I haven't. So I did some interesting. I did some cool stuff. I'm trying to think now. I did like a sort of a folk blues record with this guy Matthew. I did a lot of. Pretty much every time the phone rings, I say yes.
Yeah.
And keeping food on the table has since 2012 has sort of been the major, or since 2015, really has been the major motive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was constantly busy, just engaged with people's projects.
Yeah.
I'm in an Afrobeat band, which if you said to me in New York in 1999, hey, Mike, you're going to be like half of the 3.5 black people in a Afrobeat band, I would have poked you in the eye right away.
Why is that?
It's borderline Uncle Tom. You know what I'm saying? It's like the whole mostly white Afrobeat band thing is a genre within itself that's problematic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there I am in this band, but I'm there with this incredible Malian singer named Mamini Keita, who, is from the same Keita family as Salif Keita.
Okay.
And she's just bad. She's bad. So to perform with her every night was great. And we were playing in cool spots. We played in Borneo. We played in Finland. We played Malaysia, Finland, La Réunion, sort of near. So that was, I wasn't complaining.
Yeah. She was the reason why you joined the project?
I joined the project because they called me. There's all these sort of French projects I got into. Oftentimes people would call me just to, put some guest vocals down. And I come in, I'm like, okay, cool. This is what you need. But I'm out in 45 minutes. I'm like, let's get this done. Let me get my check. Let's go. And I move fast. But what I wasn't always savvy at doing was making sure that I didn't then get engaged in like a long-term project, and all of a sudden I'm going on tour.
Okay.
So that's what happened with that one. It was a guest vocal job that turned into being in part of a band. And in that case, it turned out great. It was fun.
Yeah. Do you usually prefer something shorter so you can just keep moving on to different stuff?
Yeah. I mean, it depends. It's a tricky one because over here, at least until COVID, those gigs did give financial stability. If I was engaged in about 4 or 5 projects during the year, so I was in the Afrobeat band. Then I got this sort of blues folk record I did with another French guy. Then I did the music for a play, and so I toured with that play. And so those were 3 solid tours going on. And then there was always 1 or 2 old tours that were still floating around. And that kept me good. It kept me very busy. And then, the additional side projects, might do a little song for a movie, maybe get some ad work,
Yeah.
And so all that kept food on the table. Nicely, I wasn't rich, but no one was complaining.
Yeah.
And allowed me to just sort of stay free as well. The only thing was that I didn't have much time to work on my own stuff.
Okay.
And I have one project that I was working on with this Senegalese sister and Nima, who goes by Thai, and a very old friend, Jusalim from the Big Dada days, who's a British brother, Jamaican origin, who lives in Birmingham. And so we have a project called Exilians. And so that was coming together, and I knew I wanted to do a new solo record. And those things were pretty much on hold because of all the other stuff I was doing. Luckily, Remy was calling me up, so that at least kept me in some sort of rap world a little bit. But luckily, when COVID hit, it was almost like a godsend because all of a sudden I had all this time to concentrate on my work. So, when the first confinement hit in March, I was making 3 or 4 beats a day and, came out of confinement with 100 tracks. Yeah. And out of those 100 tracks, there were 5 that I was like, oh, okay, I can put this on my record.
Yeah.
And then I have another, I had another 7 from previous stuff. So the record's close, you know. And then the Exilians record, the one with the Senegalese sister and the Jamaican brother, that's 3 songs away. And none of that would have happened if it weren't for COVID just putting the brakes on the world.
Yeah. Do you see a common thread between all these projects? It's just your interest.
There's definitely a common thread through the 3 I just mentioned. And then all the side work has really aided, all that side work has been great learning experiences. The blues project was awesome because I got to sing.
Okay.
Like I'm singing on the whole damn record, and also singing, singing live, and that's a whole different experience too because you're up against. It's a different. You're putting yourself before a different set of expectations. Like if you're doing poetry, everyone expects that you're gonna slip up a little bit. Like we got you, man. We got you. We're here with you. Yeah, we slipped up. That's we all just nude here. And then if you're doing hip hop, you're still, it's still relatively new, and you can sort of hide behind the beat, the structure of the music. And it's not necessary. And also, the type of stuff I do, it's like people aren't expecting. They're expecting me. They're not expecting certain things. But when I started singing to what was essentially this sort of experimental folk blues stuff, all of a sudden, like halfway through the concert, I see Richie Havens' head appear, in the back of the audience.
Yeah.
I see Bob Dylan's head, Tom Waits' head. And you're like, God damn. Because that's what people are expecting.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a whole different set of expectations. And just that format. And it was nothing but just my voice and the guitar.
Okay.
So there's nothing you can hide behind.
Is this something you always wanted to do? Was to sing?
It was something that a few people had suggested to me a long, long time ago. Like after my first record, my old manager was like, "You should make a blues record."
Yeah.
And so several other people said that. So it always, so that had been floating around.
If people primarily know you as a rapper and spoken word, is there a fear in singing now? Like maybe not from you, but people, they see you in one way and then now to try to accept you in another way. Was there a fear for that?
No. Just because, I think at this point, my reputation and what I do is so random. I've the one thing I've made sure of is sort of to dash away any real genuine expectations. Like anyone who's still following me now.
Yeah.
Is ready for anything.
Okay, got it.
I think I probably whittled down the fan base a bit, but like those who are there, they're in for the long haul.
Okay.
If you go from even just from, Easy Listen to Armageddon to Welcome to the After Future, all the way to Negrophilia, with Majesticons in between. That was already a pretty wide breadth of sounds and approaches. And that's just from, 1996 to 2003, 2004.
Yeah.
So, and I saw people's patience be strained during that period. And so since then, just like, fuck it. I just, I literally do whatever. That's sort of the deal I made with the devil or whoever is, I traded absolute liberty for economic modesty.
Yeah.
But I'm free to do whatever I want. I can literally do whatever I want. I'm beholden to no one. Not even a fan base in a way. I'm that whoever's following me, though, I feel like as long as it's not abysmal, they'll give it a shot. You know what I mean?
Good.
Go ahead.
What do you think people, when they want to work with you, that Mike Ladd brings to their project?
I think it depends. And it depends. It's a contextual thing too. Being in France, it's a whole different market than say if I was still in the U.S. and what that situation would be. I had a guy track me down. This was just a month ago. he like, I can't remember how he found me, but he actually managed to knock on my door of my studio. I was like, please, I want you on my record. Da, da, da. And he was a house guy.
Yeah.
But, and that was clearly from the sort of work I'd done in Europe before. And he wanted that grimy thing I do. I mean, certainly, as far as the U.S. or folks go, you know, if they're looking for me, it's because they're looking for a specific underground aesthetic. You know, I think I could safely argue that me and a couple of other people, including, you know, like Project Blow, Bus Driver, you know, Antipop to a certain extent, although they're a different aesthetic. An aesthetic I wish I was more of. Orco, you know, there's a whole little crew from when we started in the early 90s that really built the door frame for people like Open Mike Eagle and Milo and, you know, a whole slew of others, you know. I know in particular Milo is a big Bus Driver fan, you know, and Bus Driver and I used to tour together.
Okay.
Anyway, you know, so at this point, it's unavoidable if you made even just a little bit of impact, you're going to influence somebody. You make children. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Do you think your being in Paris, how that affected your career as if you would have stayed in New York?
Yeah, it did a lot. I mean, for me personally, I mean, it was hard. I moved over here strictly for personal reasons. I fell in love.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I remember that from when we talked before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I probably gave my spiel of how if I was moving for artistic reasons, I would have moved, you know, to Lagos or Johannesburg or Guangzhou or, you know, the Paris of the 21st century. So it was so finding inspiration in France for me was difficult. One, because I came with my own prejudices because it was such a cliche place to be, not only as an artist, but as a Black American artist. It was the last place I wanted to be creatively. So I had my own, I had to get over my own resistance, which took me about 5 years.
Okay.
And then, and there's just, you know, experimental music can kind of get, I don't want to do any generalizations because also things have changed a lot since I moved here. But like when I was here, there was one hip hop night that was great where you really felt like you were getting every, you know, poor kids, working class kids, middle class kids all coming to the same spot. Like you used to get in the LES sometimes, like you would get in Brooklyn sometimes. And it was a night called Toxic, which was run by this guy Solo, who was one of the first guys in the hip hop band Assassin. And he was also in that movie La Haine.
Okay.
An amazing dude. And Uncle O was the other guy. Anyway, and Toxic was their night. But that was it. That was the only night that didn't have that air of sort of, you know, Parisian bourgeois elite.
Yeah.
You know, because culture is so intertwined with class here, you know, and that it really does, you know, one can elevate class status through culture. That it gets really guarded. So even like, you know, whatever's cool on the underground sort of becomes, or at least it felt this way in the early 2000s. That was strictly the domain of like, you know, the upper middle class Parisian kids. And that wasn't interesting to me. There were exceptions. There was this kid DJ Mehdi who was around, who was super cool. There's always stuff going on. But because it wasn't where I wanted to be,
Mm-hmm.
It took me a while to find my inspiration. I've met great people here. There's Kaze, who's one of the best MCs I ever met. Yeah. She's amazing. Dade Cabal, who's now more of a playwright than anything else. There's Sister Ty, who I work with. Keziah Jones used to have a thing, or his buddy did. There was there've been times, the sort of diaspora community here is cool.
Yeah. Okay.
You got people like Sandra Nkake, who's a Cameroonian singer, who's just, they're just good people, But the other thing that was happening, when I moved here was I was building a family. So I'd I left New York. I quit drinking and drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
I quit drugs and alcohol 2 years before I moved to Paris. Not even. I quit, moved to Paris,
get married. Was that inspired by love?
No, it was time.
Okay.
I was, that's a whole other story. But I had to go through the whole, do a week of rehab and then do the whole AA thing and all that. But it was, I was seeing who's now my wife, and I remember I was bragging about some drunken escapade, and she was like, why are you proud of that? Why would you even announce that to me?
Yeah,
That's not. That's not something you should broadcast to anyone. And I was sort of like, oh, okay. I'm in this league now. Yeah, I got it.
Like she just held up a mirror.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, put that down now.
Yeah.
So in part, yeah. And so, when I moved, I quit drugs and alcohol, got married, and then we had our first child all within, under a year.
Yeah.
So I was also at the same time, I was learning how to be a father, learning how to be a husband, and getting over my own prejudice against French music.
Was that an organic process where you got there? Because you said it took 5 years to get rid of your preconceived notions of Paris.
Yeah, it was an organic process. A lot changed when I moved my studio to Saint Denis, which is sort of like the Bronx of Paris in a way. It's a suburb, and the suburbs here kind of function like the boroughs, and they call them suburbs, but that's really like being either in Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, or Staten Island. And so Saint Denis is this town that's a part of Paris, really. And it's the diaspora is there. Everybody is there. Not just Francophone, but you'll hear Nigerians. You'll be like, what are you guys doing here? You're supposed to be in London. You'll hear everybody. And once I was there, I felt much more at ease. And I mean, when I got here, I immediately was working with people of color, especially because of the night. Man, I forget the kid's name. It's a Ghanaian kid who was running a sort of open mic night. And, Keziah Jones would come through, Tony Allen would come through. And then there was a whole bunch of us. The first person I met there, actually, who was American, was, oh, man. He did that track with KRS-One. And he used to run Giant Step. Oh, fuck. I'm going to forget his name. He had a ragamuffin track in the mid 90s. I'll look it up. We'll have to fact check it or something. Anyway, he was there out of the blue, coked out of his mind.
Yeah.
God. Like, coked to the point he had become a Muppet. It was crazy. I'd never seen someone do so much coke they were a Muppet. I've seen people do so much coke that they've become other things, but not a Muppet.
Wait, what is a Muppet? What is
Yeah, a Muppet. Like
what did he was just like,
just he was just like, hey, man. Like,
okay, got it.
Yeah, it was like Animal, but, you know. He said, rah!
I'm going to have to steal that, Mike.
Straight up, you can do so much coke, you just Muppetize. But God, I can't remember his name. It's probably better I can't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know, there was like this good vibe when I got here. And then, you know, I think it was a combination. I want to blame Paris for everything, but, you know, it was a combination of just getting used to this family life. And I had made a pledge to myself after a previous relationship where I'd really wreaked havoc on a woman for the sake of my art, you know, just, you know, not physically, obviously, but, you know, been, you know, broken up with her, gotten back together with her, you know, always being cranky because of my art. And I just, you know, I didn't need to fuck up this person that bad. This person did not deserve that. And, you know, is the only girlfriend who will not talk to me anymore. And she is right.
Yeah.
And I came out of that relationship and I was like, you know what? I don't ever want to make someone else suffer at the expense of my work. That was just a choice I made. And so concentrating on the family was part of that choice.
Okay, got it.
And I'm happy.
Yeah,
I'm happy I did it. I mean, I know myself well enough to know that if I was, you know, if I had managed to, you know, I mean, I was making a type of music that even if at best I'd probably be performing in front of 5,000 people or 1,500 now, you know, but I know that if I'd stayed in the U.S. and only concentrated on my career, you know, 4:00 in the morning every night after the gig, even if there's 3 women in the bed, I'd still be sitting on the edge of the bed, be like, man, I wish I had a family.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I know myself well enough that, you know, that would be my Ebenezer Scrooge moment, you know.
How did you find the balance between, you know, being a good husband, dad, and still be able to have the career you want?
I just went on autopilot. And so for me, the only way I can manage it is that I kind of let go of anything strategic. And that's how I got to the point where I am now, where I just pick up the phone. Every time the phone rang, I'd say yes, you know, within reason. You know, it's like Halliburton called and was like, hey, you want to do an ad about drone strikes? I was like, nah. You know, but of course, they never called. But,
but if they did, you know you would say no.
Maybe I've seen paycheck.
Or at least be like, well, let me think. I'll get back to you. I'll think about this.
I mean, I did do an Oscar Mayer ad once. That was the closest I came to really selling out. But, you know, man, they pay good.
I would imagine, dude.
Oscar Mayer's all right. But, anyway, so yeah, how I managed it was by not managing my career in a way, and just sort of letting it go on autopilot, and just sort of really going from job to job to job. Okay. And I just let go. I let go of, there were 2 things. One, you know, when I was going through all the drug and alcohol issues, I also was in therapy. I just went to this great all-black group therapy
Mm-hmm.
I was asked to go by the city of New York. Long story that I won't go into. It was like, go to jail or go to therapy.
Okay.
And
asked in quotes.
and luckily it wasn't for anything serious. But anyway, it was great to be in an all-black therapy group. Everyone was hilarious. There was even one dude who was white, but it grown up in like racist Long Island,
Yeah,
and like some Irish neighborhood. And then when he was 18, found out that his grandfather was actually black. so he was in the therapy group with us. And I loved it, with my sort of, racial gender bending self. And then, but there was this one sister from the Bronx and they were just looking at him every time. It's like, why are you here? What's wrong with you?
Dealing with his own trauma.
Right. Exactly. But anyway, so between going through therapy and sort of stopping drinking, I didn't need going through those processes. I didn't need the attention in the same way. So I didn't have that same drive, that sort of, maniacal Kanye West-esque need to prove myself to others or even me. I had lost that sort of feeling you have when you're at a show and you just have to be on stage, like, oh my God, that's gotta be me up there. How can I get a verse in?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I also just lost that, I used to have that thing where like, if I wasn't on stage, twice a week, I didn't feel good. And that went away.
Well, that must be freeing, right?
Yeah, it's totally liberating.
Yeah.
The other trick though is, goals, right? Basically my idea was I was going to move to New York. I was head of my Black student union at Hampshire College, which is kind of a joke as it is, but I was the head of the Black student union there, which means I was the head of the student union with about 30 people in it.
Okay.
And we had Professor. I invited Professor Griff to come speak.
Yeah.
And he and I really hit it off. And he was like, "Yo, you should come to New York." And Tony Medina is a poet, and some other people like, "Yo, come to New York." So my plan was to move to New York, make a cult record, and then go to law school and become Barack Obama. Instead it took me almost 10 years to make that cult record. Yeah. Well, it took me 5 years. 4 years to get to. And then, but really all I wanted to do musically, and I just believe this, I believe this is true with everybody. Everyone's trying to replicate that initial aha moment with music. It's probably painting, whatever, same thing. That moment for you, right? So for Pharrell, I imagine he was on the dance floor. He's 12 years old, worried about how his armpits smelled. Michael Jackson comes on. She grinds up next to him. He pops a boner. He's like, this is it. I just need to make music that makes this happen all the time.
Over and over, yeah.
I don't know what it was for the weekend. But then for me...
God, we can only imagine, right?
Exactly. Like somewhere in between, but like something went wrong. But for me, it was a really solitary experience. It was me in my mother's crates, and she had all these records. And I found Sly and the Family Stone Stand, which for my little world, and it was 1984. Nobody knew that record. That was a complete sort of secret gem that I discovered all by myself and was convinced that no one else knew, and it was an entirely solitary experience. And that continued to happen as, of course, I started digging. And then there really were obscure records I would find. And that joy of having this, visceral experience with an artifact was what I loved. And I achieved that with, especially with Welcome to the After Future. Like, people contact me to this day and are like, yo, I was alone in my room and I heard the record and I was like, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
So also part of it was that my ultimate goal was just to have that, my sort of innate subconscious ultimate goal was just to replicate that experience.
Okay. So is that feeling what kept you from going to law school when you discovered this with music?
No, sort of cynicism kept me from going to law school and from remaining in politics.
Yeah.
I had volunteered, and I'm a terrible student. I have this very academic mom, and so my whatever intellectual prowess I have, I got by osmosis. I'm trying to work with that now. It's funny because I'm at our house now. I moved her over to Burgundy. But you can see. I mean, this is.
Oh, those are all hers.
Yeah, man.
That's crazy, man.
And we got Bearden's up on the wall.
Wow.
And I grew up in the shadow of this. And I grew up in in this funny situation between a sort of working poor situation in Cambridge, which is still Cambridge. And then that was when I would be at my aunt's house, who's not even my real aunt, but just took care of me when my mom was working a lot. And then in my mom's world, which was the black faculty of Harvard in the 70s, who were almost a cabal. I mean, you're talking about a body of people who are, in the Ivy Tower, but under siege, because they're black and it's 1978, 1975. So they have so much armor on, and the end, these are like, it's like hanging out with the Navy SEALs team of the spooks that sat by a door. Like, imagine that. Imagine that it's not just one spook sitting by the door, but it's like a SEAL team, and it's them. Someone's also like, Brother Michael, how are you gonna lift up the race in 5 words or less, and then tell me where you going to college, Harvard or Yale? You only have the 2 choices, son. So that type of vibe, and I became pretty jaded about all these sort of structural approaches early. And in retrospect, I'm glad it's actually worked out. It seems that the movement really was to go step by step to work within the system to get as many lawyers as we could into the right places, to just push policy, one pebble forward as we've been doing. I'm glad that strategy worked out better than mine.
Yeah.
Because, I was on some sort of Maoist Stalinistic trip that was going to get a lot of people killed. Might get freedom in the end, but man, the path was going to be bloody. I was really on some Idi Amin biracial kick.
So doing music, I guess, is just like this really hard earned thing to give up, because you've got the weight of, what your mom's doing and all that. And then now you're going into this career that's not that. And there's nothing sure about it.
The specter, that sort of classic, mid 20th century specter of you should be, if you don't, we've got enough singers and tap dancers, basically.
Yeah.
That specter is always there. which I think is also why I still teach. You know, I make sure, and I'm that's where I really exercise my activism. You know, I still work with kids in high schools, and I teach at all levels, but I try and teach in disadvantaged situations. And that's really important to me because that's where I feel my activism and where all of the knowledge and that I was, that I accrued, but also was just inherited, can really be put to use.
Okay. So you just kind of moved it to another area.
Yeah. And I feel like, I mean, that's where I function best is to sort of on the ground, at the first tier.
Yeah. What kind of fortitude does it take to walk away from what's expected of you to do something that you feel, more passionate about? Because that couldn't have been easy.
It wasn't that difficult.
Okay.
By the time I got through adolescence, my mom was happy I was alive.
Okay.
I mean, that's a tricky question because the fortitude and the pressure was subtle.
Yeah.
I think, as much as my mother didn't understand hip hop or staying in that, there's another anecdote in a second. She did like the idea of me being a poet.
Okay.
And being a writer. Mm-hmm. And I satisfied that. And of course, the work I did with Vijay, once you get in the New York Times, your mom shuts the hell up.
Yep. New York Times a lot about it.
Yeah. Look at the Hoods page. And I got in on, on some pretty credible stuff, the work with Vijay. And so once those collaborations got written up, we were cool.
Okay.
But it is true that so my mom went to Howard with a bunch of people. She like our vice president, she was an AKA. Mm-hmm. But so she was in school with Toni Morrison and Roxy Roker.
Okay.
And I used to hear her, this when I was a kid, 8, 9, 10. I would overhear her talking to her girlfriends on the phone. And they'd be like, have you heard about Roxy's child? He wants to be a musician. Like, oh, yeah. That's Lenny Kravitz. That's Lenny motherfucking Kravitz.
The shame. Right?
They were like, could have been
poor Roxy.
So it was funny because of a weird series of events. Lenny actually ended up being at my mother-in-law's funeral. And my mother was there, of course, and she takes him under his arm and she's like, I haven't seen you since you were about 11 years old. Picks his collar and is like, you need a stylist. I'm like, oh, God.
Lenny Kravitz is one of the coolest looking people.
And then we shared a cigarette out on and I met him once before and completely outside of musical context. We've never talked about, I just, we sort of, the only time I've shared with him is just really understanding how much of a fan he is of all the greats, But anyway, that day we exchanged 2 words. We just shared a cigarette after that moment. And he was just like, this is weird, man. and then left. It's like, but so, I think he knows. It's that mid-19th century, pressure, or mid 20th
Yeah.
Mid 19th century pressure was a whole other thing.
No, I understand, because I mean, I was told that, intelligent people like myself don't go into the arts. Like, I should be a teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, that type of thing. Yeah. So I get that completely.
Yeah.
And not having what you do necessarily value.
And it doesn't stray.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
I do.
But, once you get to a certain age, no turning back.
Yeah. No one could stop you, right? Except you. So I want to ask you.
Wait, go ahead. What were we going to say?
The TheDeadCanRap. Talk about that. Your latest project.
Yeah.
With Remi Rough.
So
how did that come about?
So Remy's an old friend who I've known, I guess, since 99, 2000, maybe even earlier. But he was sort of hanging around with the Big Dada crew. And, because I did the Infesticons record with Big Dada, which part of Ninja Tune in the, I guess 2000 was the first one came out. And that's when I started touring in Europe a lot and in the UK a lot. I really liked the whole UK vibe. And there was, Juice Salim, Toasty Taylor, Ty, Woods Maneuver. And so I was hanging out with all those guys pretty tight. And Remy was there. He was a graffiti artist. And he also had a band called the Reptiles. And so we would, I'd hang out. I guested on his records. Anyway, long story short, we became old friends. And he's become a really successful visual artist. And he's really good at self-promotion. And I'm terrible at self-promotion. And I was like, let me hang out with Remy for a while and not keep hiding in this, weird turtle shell. Let me see if some of his self-promotion psychosis will rub off on me. And so that was part of the impetus, aside from just, he's just a dear friend. And it was a friend being like, hey, Mike, let's do this. Let's get this done. And he was motivated. And so thankfully, because he was so motivated, it got finished despite all the other projects I got going on and all the projects he's got going on. I mean, it's not like I got any excuse better than he does. Yeah. He's busy. I think for him, it's a genuine release, because his chosen field is visual arts. Like for him, it was a real escape to make the record, and that's what also made it successful. He's just cranking out beats on his laptop, like I don't know how many he's doing a night, but he's just banging them out.
So did you both come up with beats?
And being a good dad and husband.
Okay. So did you both come up with beats and you?
No, that record is
all his. Okay.
Those are pretty much all him. I did one beat on that record.
Okay.
That's really his sound.
What is it like for you working on somebody else's beats as opposed to your own stuff? Like, what do you have to bring to anything different? You have to.
Well, I've done it so much at this point. I've guessed it so much. It is weird in a way when it is, such a collaborative process, where it's like in part my band, this isn't a guest. This is different than a guest job. It's not a rap job. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But, Remy keeps wanting me to do beats. So who knows what the next record will be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I like the distinct, Remy creates such a universe sonically and then visually, and they correspond well with each other that it is kind of nice as its own separate thing.
Yeah.
And my own aesthetic and beat wise is pretty different. I've been heading a lot closer to sort of the first Infesticons record. And even going back to the whole, just to my, really, I'm returned to sort of the Welcome to the After Future Infesticons vibe, but even maybe more aggressive.
Yeah.
I just like things stark, empty, and ugly, you know. Been messing with a lot of contemporary music samples. There's just some great people out there, man. Like John Adams. There's just these crazy composers. You can just sample the hell out of.
Yeah. When you for your beat, when you're deciding to rap about something, did you already have ideas before you heard his beats, or his beats inspired what you were going to add to each song?
I think actually with Remy, I think I wrote a lot to what he was sending, which is usually I just got a bunch of stuff that I've written. You know, like I try and wake up every morning and write something. You know, rap a day keeps the banker away. You know, I don't know, but
yeah, that's it.
So, you know, most of the time I'm just mashing in whatever I wrote onto something else. And in that case, there were some times I definitely just wrote to his beats. Yeah, mess with flow a little bit more than I used to. Maybe.
Okay. And so you said you were working on your solo album. Do you have a time when you want that to come out, or?
I just need to write the lyrics, man.
Yeah.
Like I got these beats that I love, and I gotta write the lyrics. The problem is I've been addicted to NPR.
Okay.
Like I can't stop listening to it. It's been like 3 years straight. All I do, like, I can't stop listening to National Public Radio. I don't care if it's Magna Chakrabarty, Susan Sandberg, Steve Inskeep. Like, it's like some sort of postgraduate Thorazine. It's like Oxycontin or something. It's just, but I was like, oh, they all think like I do. This is cool. They're so reasonable and measured in their thought process. And it's funny because actually my son now listens to NPR just to go to sleep. You know, like the kids who will like watch TV to fall asleep
He's
or
doing
put
NPR.
on like, you know, waves. He just puts on NPR and he's like,
so this is what's keeping you from working?
Yeah, I'm blaming it on fucking Susan Sandberg. It's Kai Rizdal's fault. Doing the fucking numbers. Yeah, I'm gonna blame it all on them. It's really Magna Chakrabarty and on point.
So if you can give that up, you're all
set.
Man. You're all set.
Yeah, if I could give I don't even listen to All Music Considered or whatever it is, All Songs Considered.
Yeah.
No, don't go near it.
Just
no.
Okay.
Yeah. If they start talking about music, I skip.
Well, Mike, this was wonderful, man.
Yeah, it was great to see you.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you. And actually, we still haven't actually met in person.
Same.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah. Like the days of the week, right? It doesn't even matter now.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add?
No, just, you know, one of these things, come over.
Yeah, I would love to.
If you do end up here, you know, give a call. I'll take you out to Great Haitian Food.
Oh, that sounds great.
Come see the studio. What else is there to do out here? I don't know. We'll come out to the country. You come to this house.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
I will accept that invitation, man.
No, it's real.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So,
thank you, Mike. Be well.
Thank you.
50, boarding school refugee. Keep our message off, connected to the family. If we done mashing, better you don't text me. If you need to fantasize, close your eyes and think of me. Dirty old man calling on variety. If I went to the gym and wax, I'd be creepy. You not in your head like facts, got you thinking. You playing them JPEG tracks, get in. Off of insults, nod to the insults. Live for the insults, 2 legs and a walking insult. Fuck you with an insult, write a passage insult. Walk about the insult, governance by insult. Lucky that I moved from the land of the guns. Had one to my temple more than once. By my own hand in the darkest months. Yeah, by my own hand in the darkest months. Black man in the white guilt clan, crying in the bathtub, shower on, kids will understand. But they'll still be fucked up. Better get that therapy payment plan if you give a fuck. 21st century reflection. Nihilism versus dejection. Apocalypse deflection via self-obsession. Apocalypse deflection via self-obsession.
Welcome to the bathing of celebrants. I'm trying to retain a modicum of cultural relevance. As hard as an artist with limited elements. All they seem to care about is subtlety and elegance. And I can taste the sediment of human erosion. The blurring of lines between love and explosions in Paris, London, and even Aleppo. All this parasites been killing our planet since the get-go. Now it's on some other entertainment, YouTube, Twitter, or some social engagement. And meanwhile I'm working on another arrangement. And everything's going so well to my amazement. I couldn't stand the talk and hypocrisy, now I'm fully endorsed. But how much is this costing me? It's lost to me. I'm surrounded by coarse toys, living on a planet all infested with war noise from Theresa, Khomeini, Donald and Kim. Exit the Brexit, the outcome's horrendously grim. And the chances of peace are incredibly slim. Now I can only tell myself I'm so much better than him.
21st century reflection. Nihilism versus dejection. Apocalypse deflection via self-obsession.
And that was 21st Century from TheDeadCanRap, Mike Ladd, Remi Rough. I hope you enjoyed their music. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Mike Ladd. If you would like more information on the podcast, please visit talkmusictalk.com. More information there. Plus, you can stream every single episode. I am also on Instagram, so follow me there at ThisIsBoice. Some requests for you. Please subscribe to the podcast. You can do so on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Audible. And as I mentioned earlier, Samsung Free, the app on Galaxy phones. Just search for Talk Music Talk with Boice. Wherever you happen to listen, please leave a 5-star rating and or review to help expose the podcast to brand new listeners. There is also a Talk Music Talk app. You can get it wherever you like to get your apps. It is free, so please download it. Again, just search for Talk Music Talk. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, and there will be a next time, this one's for you, Liz.